This video includes heavy spoilers for those who haven't watched this show. Hello everyone, welcome to my first review on this channel. Today it'll be about My Hero Academia and we'll be talking about all the arcs and taking a quick overview, I suppose, and then I'll be giving my final score out of 100 at the end. So all in all, there are 13 arcs in My Hero Academia and we're going to be talking about all of them. We're going to be doing a sort of a summary of each arc, I suppose, and its main highlights. Now, the first major arc is called the entrance exams, which is, you guessed it, the entrance exams. In this arc, Midoriya trains to become the next wielder of One For All after meeting All Might. In this arc, we see that Midoriya taking a very rigorous training exercise, having to clear out a certain section of a beach filled with trash. So, with the help of All Might, it took him a few months, to finish his training exercise, and after it he became absolutely ripped and was ready to inherit One For All, and then he did. So after inheriting One For All, Midoriya went to the examination location and completely obliterated the hardest enemy that was available in that exam, and shortly after he got a message from UA, specifically All Might, to officially enroll into the academy. Now, the second arc is called the Quirk Apprehension Test, and the main highlight of this arc was meeting the homeroom teacher for Class 1A. We know him as Eraserhead, Aizawa. After meeting him, Midoriya learns that if he continues to put himself in a state where he can't move anymore, essentially, he would become expelled. So Midoriya had to think of a way to actually become useful in a fight. So what he ended up the conclusion he ended up reaching was that he should use his fingers and essentially not his whole arm, as he couldn't control it in the beginning. The next arc was the Battle Trial arc. Now this is when Deku and Bakugo went up toe to toe in the exercise in which one team was heroes and the other was villains. Now in this exercise, obviously Bakugo was the villain, and they had a little hand-to-hand combat little scene, and essentially Bakugo beat him, but Midoriya did end up actually securing the win with his fellow teammate Uraraka. Now, the USJ arc was the first time our heroes were put into a life or death situation in which they were fighting against people outside of their school. Now, the main highlights of this arc include Midoriya showing his power to two classmates at the time, one of them being Tsuyu, a frog girl, and the second being Mineta, a guy with big balls? Anyway, we get to see some of their quirks, and we see the frog girl actually is superior in water to most of the enemies, if not all the enemies, and then we see that Mineta actually threw his sticky balls into the water, causing everyone to be stuck together, with Midoriya delivering the final blow. Next thing that happened was All Might fighting Nomu. Nomu was a bioengineered human who was comparable to All Might in raw strength. So after a very intense battle between the two, All Might actually came out victorious. But unfortunately, the consequences were the time he could spend as a hero was shortened from 3 hours to 1. Now, the next arc was sort of a intermission between any issues. It was called the Sports Festival arc. In it, we see Midoriya using his big boy brain to strategize ways to be able to defeat the others without using his quirk, because so far using his quirk causes him to become immobile. One of the challenges in the sports festival was called the Cavalry, and the three main teams to look out for were Team Midoriya, Team Bakugo, and Team Todoroki. Now, the members of these teams were Midoriya, Uraraka, Tokoyami, and Mei. Now, essentially, each team ended up choosing specific members to focus on mobility and members to focus on attack and defense. For Midoriya's case, he had Uraraka use her quirk, which renders anything she touches to have 0 gravity. She used her quirk and touched everyone on her team so that they are weightless. Now, Tokoyami had a quirk called Dark Shadow. This quirk essentially is sort of like a stand from I don't know, dude. Essentially, he was able to have a demon come out of him. This demon was perfect for defense and attack, as he could move quickly and is connected to Tokoyami. The last member was Mei, and she was not actually in the hero course, she was actually in the support course, and her job was to supply the team with support items such as hover boots. Now, Team Bakugo was made up of, obviously, Bakugo, Kirishima, Mina, and Zero. Now, Bakugo was the powerhouse of this team, using his explosions to render any enemy in front of him, destroyed. Kirishima can harden, so he was naturally the defense of the team. Mina used her acid, in which she shot her out of her foot to give the team higher movement speed. And Zero was basically the one to catch Bakugo whenever he left the team with his tape. Team Todoroki was made up of Todoroki, Ida, Momo, and Kaminari. Now, Todoroki was the leader of the team, using his ice to defend and attack. Ida was the mobility experts, I guess you could say. He used his quirk to move the team around. Momo was creating anti-electricity blankets to protect them from Kaminari, and Kaminari obviously used his ability to attack everyone in a wide area, rendering them unconscious. Another important moment in this arc was Todoroki versus Deku, in which Deku actually starts to gain a little bit of control over One For All. We see him punching Todoroki without him exploding, essentially. Also, during that fight, we see Todoroki actually get released from the burden of his past, and we see him use both of his quirks, ice and fire. And after beating Deku, he goes up against Bakugo, and he suppresses his fire back again. And Bakugo, being the person that he is, essentially was not happy with him suppressing it and was, incredibly violent. Bakugo ended up winning the sports festival. That concludes this arc. Now, this next arc was really dangerous because this is the first time that our heroes had no chance of backup coming in time. Backup being the pro heroes. Now, this arc was the Hero Killer Stains arc. In this arc, at the beginning of it, we see our heroes come up with their own hero names, such as Deku for Midoriya, Shoto for Todoroki, and Red Riot for Kirishima. Now, in this arc, they went on something I believe was called the internship program, in which each hero went to a different pro heroes agency, as the name implies, performing an internship. Now, Midoriya went to a man called Gran Torino, and this man was All Might's master's friend. This man ended up teaching Midoriya full cowling, which is having his power surge throughout his whole body instead of just one body part. After mastering full cowling, Todoroki, Ida, and Deku ended up having to fight Stain in an alleyway with no chance of heroes coming for backup. So in this battle, Todoroki is using both his fire and ice as he's overcome his issues with his father, or at least enough to be able to use his flames without any hesitation. Ida had been injured, so he couldn't really fight as much as he could, but he was able to use his ultimate move, which was called the Recipro Burst, which essentially overdrives his engine, causing the flames to become blue. I don't know how realistic that is, but it becomes extremely fast, and him and Midoriya were the spears fighting Stain, while Todoroki was attacking with both ice and fire from a distance. The next arc was the final exams arc, in which all of Class 1A had to go against their teachers in order to pass the final exam. Now, all of the battles were inconsequential until we had Midoriya and Bakugo versus All Might. Now, this battle in and of itself seemed impossible to actually win in, but Midoriya, being the hero that he is, did not give up and tried to play it smart. He did not want to fight All Might directly, as he knows that would result in definite defeat. Bakugo, on the other hand, was not too keen on this approach and immediately tried to to just fight All Might. Now, this next arc is called the Forest Training. Here we see our heroes taking vigorous quirk training exercises in which, instead of actually training their bodies, they perform certain activities that stress their quirks in order to try to make them stronger and last for longer. We also see one of the most terrifying situations Deku ever gets put in this arc, where he has to go one-on-one against a man called Muscular, who is able to take a 100% smash from Midoriya. No one knew where Deku was, so he had no chance of anyone coming to help him. But the issue was, whenever he hit him with his 5% smashes, they did absolutely no damage. And then when he ramped it up to 100%, even those were blocked quite easily. After an intense battle, Midoriya gathered up as much strength as he could, and he unleashed something he dubbed the 1,000,000% Smash, in which he was able to break through Muscular's plate of armor, quote unquote, and was able to defeat him. But after the fight, both his arms were broken, and he was more or less useless. Bakugo was also kidnapped in this arc. So the next arc is called the Hideout Raid, in which they try to rescue Bakugo and take out the villains once and for all. Now, this is arguably one of the most important fights in all of this anime. It was All Might versus All for One. In this fight, All Might went up against him in a one-on-one battle where people were watching, and anything that happened to him, as we know, he only has 1 hour of hero time, so anything that happened to him was going to be broadcast to everyone in the world. After a really intense battle between the two, All Might came out victorious, but not before having his real form be revealed to the world. The next arc is called Provisional Hero Exams. In this arc, because of the kidnapping that happened to Bakugo, the school decided to implement a dorm system in the UA Academy and had all of the students move there. A few days later, they had the students work on perfecting and or creating ultimate moves. For people like Bakugo and Ida, they had already had ultimate moves and only focused on honing them. Midoriya came to the conclusion that he should start using his legs in battle. So after the exam, we see that everyone has passed the exam except for Todoroki and Bakugo. After the exam ended and they returned to the dorms, Midoriya and Bakugo end up getting in another fight, and this time it is serious and both of them are using as much power as they could. Midoriya even manages to squeeze out 8% of his power. Now the next arc is the Overhaul arc, and this is probably my favorite animated arc to date. Essentially, we meet a group of people called the Big Three, and they are essentially the best in the school. Now, one of the Big Three takes Midoriya and has him meet a guy called Night Eye, who was All Might's partner back in the old days. So in this arc, we start to see more involvement from some side characters such as Kirishima, aka Red Riot. We see his backstory, and we see him actually decide why he became a hero and what his purpose is as a hero. Then we see a new form of his called Unbreakable. Essentially, this is his hardening quirk maxed out. In the same episode, we see the debut of something called Anti-Quirk Darts, in which they disable your quirk for a limited amount of time. After investigating what was the source of these darts, they find out that it came from a girl who is held at a specific place by a man called Overhaul. After raiding this place, we see Sun Eater, one of the Big Three. We see his backstory, and we see him fight, and we see him use his quirk. We also see Lemillion, also one of the Big Three, the same man who guided Midoriya to Night Eye. We see him use his quirk and absolutely demolish anything and everyone. The anti-quirk darts were actually perfected during this short amount of time, and he was actually shot by one. So he ended up losing his quirk. Night Eye tries to fend off Overhaul, and doesn't really succeed. He ends up getting impaled, and is left close to death. After seeing this, Deku went into a fit of rage and managed to squeeze out as much power as his body could handle, which at the time is 20%. After a fast-paced fight, we find out that Midoriya is no match for Overhaul as his moves are too linear. Overhaul tries to escape, but Midoriya manages to save the girl, and we find out that the girl has the power to rewind. So after grabbing the girl, Midoriya tries to escape Overhaul, but Overhaul keeps attacking him over and over again, with no chance of escape. It's then that Midoriya accidentally uses his full power to jump out of the situation, quite literally, and he finds out that his bones were not broken. This is because the girl's power allows him to rewind his bones back to before they were broken, before even feeling the pain. This essentially gave Midoriya a constant state of 100%, in which he was probably as strong as All Might. As you can imagine, he made short work of Overhaul, defeating him in only a few attacks. In the end of the arc, we see Night Eye dying after meeting All Might for the last time. The final arc that is currently released is called the School Festival arc. Now, the School Festival is a festival that is held at our school, as said by the great man, Lemillion. In the first few episodes of this arc, we see a YouTuber. We see a YouTuber called Gentle Criminal. Yeah, you guessed it, he's gonna fight Deku. The fight was pretty meh, as it wasn't anything too special. Now, for my final thoughts on this, My Hero Academia as an anime it's amazing. I mean, you see character development from Bakugo. You see them fight twice, and each fight has different weight and different values for each person. They have both evolved as heroes and as, I guess, fighters. All in all, I'd give My Hero Academia a 90 out of 100. I don't know what it can do to be better, but I know that it doesn't deserve 100. That being said, it was one of the greatest animes I've ever watched and will probably ever watch. And I highly recommend anyone who hasn't seen it to watch it. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I want to urge you guys to like and share this video, as it really helps the channel grow and makes this video, reach many people. And peace.